having a little space, so I can little space in the video.
Why?
Because it's easier to cut when there's a space. Hi, and welcome everyone to this week's Chen chat. So what is it? Today we're a bit late actually, because it's Saturday at 1:05 in the UK, effectively. So we've put our makeup on, done our faces. Well, Jane has, I haven't done anything really. Had another shower. So we're keen to get cracking with Chen chat. So thanks for all your questions. We've got a whole load of those that we've been through. I just wanted to make the point as well that if your particular question doesn't get answered this week, you obviously can put that in again for next week, and they're being picked every week differently, so it could well come up. And I think that is the case for someone this week, because their question was in last week's that's being picked for this week, which I think is Jess Ware, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so with no more further ado, we'll hand over to Chen. Jane will be asking the questions, and I will see you guys in a little while. Okay. Good day, my dear.
Hello, Chen.
And I'd like to say hello to the audience that are watching. So it's my pleasure to be back again. It feels so soon to be going through some of these questions, which I think is a wonderful opportunity for people to be able to connect with myself, and obviously from a spiritual perspective to ask inherently interesting questions that you find difficult to either find resolution to or to find a format to obtain answers. So we're hoping that this particular method of you and I talking, my dear, is a very quick and easy method for me to be able to throw some light on questions that people have that they are finding very interesting, or topical questions that, again, we need answers, but they need answers topically in the right time frame. So this is our hope for these particular sessions.
Yes, you have your uses, Chen, don't you?
I have lots of uses, my dear.
Yes, I know.
And I'm starting to enjoy these social media conversations and chats.
Good, good. Okay, well, our first question is from Rhonda Cooper. Hi, Chen, my first question ever. As we know, Akashic Records are not bound by time and can be accessed from different timelines, with the depth of information depending on one's vibrational level. I've noticed that the Akashic Record readings or channelings I receive from others have often seemed basic or unsatisfactory. So my question is this: could this dissatisfaction stem from me being more attuned to subtle, profound aspects of existence, or having a higher vibrational frequency than the person doing the reading? In other words, they're not capable to reach info that is more aligned to my frequency. Could this be why? Thanks heaps.
Yes, so a very interesting question. And it does actually cover the spiritual topics as a whole to a certain degree, because, of course, each of you have a vibration, as the young lady has said, and each of you are able to attain a certain frequency of vibration, generally depending upon life choices, your spiritual path, your spiritual progress, and your spiritual development. So, of course, if you're asking for a reading, whether it be an Akashic reading or any other type of reading generally from other people, if that person isn't as progressed or advanced as you are on your spiritual path, or doesn't have access to the level of vibration that you do, then of course the information coming from them would be insufficiently or in a lower level of capacity to one that you could obtain yourself. And this, of course, is one of the big problems with spirituality, really, is that people generally give their power away to other people. And we have lots of self-appointed gurus that stand up and say that they're the best at certain things that they do. And then, of course, all of the other people refer to those people to be the guru or the person that has the most knowledge. So what the young lady is basically saying is, if I'm very progressed spiritually, which it sounds like she probably is, and I would probably agree with her, then of course if you go to someone that offers a service that doesn't have your level of understanding, intellectual capacity or vibration, then of course the information coming back isn't going to be particularly suitable for you. And of course everything is vibration. So when I speak myself and I speak to you, my dear, we converse at a level of intellectual vibration. So if I say something that's true, your heart center opens. We've covered this many times before. Yes. And you assimilate the information because you think this is truthful information that Chen's saying. I agree. If I say something that's not truthful and it's a lie, then your heart center will close, and immediately you'll feel slightly anxious, or you may feel slightly odd about the information coming forward. And this is the discernment that all of you have. So I would agree with
Rhonda.
with Rhonda's question that
Yes.
she's correct. Her vibration is more than likely a lot higher than those people that are providing her with the information.
Okay, there we are, Rhonda. Thank you, Chen. Okay, Shelley Beans. Thank you for doing this for us, Chen. As a nurse, I'm looking for suggestions on how best to help my patients with anxiety, and I would also like to understand the purpose of dementia.
Yeah, so 2 questions in one,
It
really.
is, yes.
Which was part of the reason that I chose the question, because I thought I could sneak another one in. So it's quite clever on my part, I thought.
Good.
Because I was told, everyone, that I was only allowed to have 5 questions. So I thought if some questions have double questions, I get to answer more things.
Yes, we've actually got 6 anyway, haven't we? But that makes it 7 then.
Yes, it's clever.
Okay. It
very
is,
clever.
yes.
So to answer the first question,
Yes.
basically around helping patients or helping people in hospitals, obviously if you work in the medical profession and you are spiritually aware, which obviously this young lady is, then of course you realise that from a physical perspective, the medical system helps people physically. So they bandage broken arms and they provide physical help for physical problems. But things like anxiety obviously are not physical. They're an emotional and vibratory problem generally. And most people that are suffering with anxiety is the spiritual part of your intelligence telling you that there's something wrong. So the reason you feel anxious, I think the medical profession would put this down to fear, a fear-based problem. But from our perspective, it's the spiritual intelligence that all of you have that's basically flashing the red light to tell you there's a problem. And generally people feel anxious because they don't understand where the problem is or how it manifests or where it manifests, basically. But it's generally a spiritual problem that needs to be identified. So people that have attachments, whether they be entity attachments or discarnate spirit, connected to their etheric field, those attachments will be using negative intrusion, basically, whether it's intrusive thoughts, intrusive voices. People will find that they start to attract and become part of chaos generally. So your life enters into some chaotic state, or those people around you become chaotic around you. So you're the catalyst effectively, and that basically brings forward the feeling of anxiety, because anxiety is just an indicator that there is a spiritual problem that needs to be looked at. But of course, no one really understands that from the medical profession.
Yes.
So that's the first answer. And then there's another one, my dear.
Yes.
So moving on to the second question, which of course was around dementia.
Yes.
So dementia, again, is effectively a psychological problem. So it's generally the degradation of the mental structures in the human being. So as people age, obviously the brain and the human body starts to deteriorate. And then, of course, as the mental faculties start to deteriorate, generally through toxins. So people that have ingested toxins through their life, as they become older, you start to see these aspects of dementia coming forward. So they start to have memory problems. They start to have different personalities. One day they may be nice and friendly. The next day they may be angry and very nasty.
Yes.
So these are inherently aspects of degradation, mental degradation. But of course, if people have attachments, then attachments can cause the same sorts of effect or the same sorts of symptoms. So the first thing is to check someone doesn't have attachments and they are sovereign. And if they then still display the symptoms of dementia, then you have to assume that it's down to toxicity and poisoning of the mental structures of the brain.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. That explains a lot. An interesting question now, as well as the others, obviously. Jess Ware, she sent her question in last week and it wasn't chosen, so she's trying again. And this is her question. Hi, Chen. Do you have any tips for parenting these wild-spirited young kids, starseeds? My little one is 6. She's wild and I can't keep up. Thank you.
It's a very topical and fun question. So thank you for that. And of course, we like perseverance as well. So something I like to see, people that don't give up. So if you put questions in and they're not chosen this particular week, then potentially they will be chosen on another week. So
it's hard to choose, isn't it?
Yeah, so when we have so many questions, all of the questions, actually, I mean, I would obviously be able to find the time to answer all the questions every week. But of course, yourself and young Andrew are more constricted from a time perspective. And obviously you have so many other balls in the air that I'm aware that this can't happen at the moment. But of course, I am looking to have this platform that we have on Facebook. So I'm thinking of ways that I can be more accessible to the audience,
Yes,
if
of
you
course.
like. So I haven't really
Yes.
told you about some of my ideas yet, myself,
Oh,
but there are ideas that we do have in the astral that will probably come into fruition.
pop into
at some
Andy's
point.
mind, yeah.
Yes, yes. So,
Okay.
so the question about young children, obviously children being born into the planet now, coming in, the energy and the vibration of planet Earth is changing rapidly, as most of you are feeling. Most adults are feeling tired, fatigued, having odd feelings, odd pains in the different parts of the body, more than likely, memory problems. So there's a whole raft of symptoms, again, that people are starting to feel from a physical perspective, which is down to the vibration and energy. And of course, the young children coming in are manifesting and incarnating into physical bodies that are different to yours. So their genetics and the DNA is changing. And of course, they're being changed. And these young starseeds are coming in to make and forge change on planet Earth. So there's lots of children here now under the age of 14 or 15 that are basically organically different in the way they think and the way they do things to all of the other humans on the planet. So the youngsters are coming in different, basically. And of course, if you're a parent of one of these youngsters, you'll notice that they're different because they basically won't do as they're told. They have a different thought process. Again, they come in with this level of what we would call perseverance. So they basically want to get their way continually. And most of them are actually here to basically be part of the new planet, the new system. The old system is crumbling and falling away, spiritually and physically, as most of you are aware. You can see that all of your environmental systems are starting to change. So these new humans coming in are coming in with a completely different way of thinking, a completely different way of acting, and they won't be bound by the structures of this old system. And this is why, of course, if you're a parent of one of these, you'll find that you are, as the young lady said, finding they're wild, because they're wild by design. So, of course, what that means from a parenting perspective is try not to contain them. The more you try to contain them with rules, the more you try to contain them with boundaries and structures around them, the more difficult they will become for you. What you need to do is you need to give them the free rein and let them do things differently. So that the parenting that you had from your parents is not going to work with these new children. You have to basically give them a lot more free rein and let them be inventive, let them do different things. When they talk to you about ideas they're having, they're actually spiritually attuned as well, of course. So most of them are coming in with telepathy turned on. They can talk to other beings, animals, and entities. So they're going to be very difficult to bring up because you won't understand the things that you were taught and the things that you were exposed to in your childhood won't work for these children at all. So they will be talking to animals, they will be forming relationships with dogs and cats and other domestic animals and such like, because effectively they will be communicating and talking to them on a spiritual level. So this is a wildly exciting time.
Yes.
Maybe not for the parents.
Yes. Yes. Oh, thank you for the tips, though. That's, and I hope that helps. Okay, Topher Love says, hello, thanks for the opportunity. Do you believe that once humanity and the collective consciousness reaches a certain high vibration, that entities will no longer be able to attach themselves to people, thus making SRT and other healing practices obsolete for some? I know it'll always be a spectrum, but I'm just curious if I can get to a certain vibration that will eventually make some spiritual hygiene practices obsolete.
Yeah, so it's a very, again, a topical question. We're talking about spirit release therapy, and obviously we have the up-and-coming course that we're teaching, and of course myself, White Hawk, and the other guide teams are instrumental in these courses, and we're instrumental in the teaching. So from our perspective, this is the whole point of what we teach. We're trying to give people the right skills, the knowledge and the understanding to be able to manage their own spiritual hygiene. And I like the word hygiene because, you know, everyone has a wash or a shower every day to maintain your physical hygiene. And of course, spiritual hygiene is as important, if not actually more important, because if you don't wash for 2 or 3 days physically, you may smell slightly. but of course it's not particularly problematic to you, just other people really, if they're around you.
Yes.
But of course, if you don't look after your spiritual hygiene and you have some type of attachment, then you start to have intrusive negative thoughts, you start to have odd ideas, or you start to feel pains in different parts of your body. So there's a whole host of other problems that come forward if you don't maintain spiritual hygiene that really are not reflective to the physical hygiene. So the spiritual aspect needs to be given more priority to a certain degree, although both obviously have their place. So to answer the question, the higher your own vibration, the less problems you have with entities or attachments, because it's this concept of the roundabout that we speak about so often. And I love the imagery that you have this roundabout as a children that you used to spin and you would jump on it. And if the roundabout was going slowly, you could easily jump in with your friends and you'd all hang on and you'd scream wildly. And then someone external to the roundabout, generally a parent, would start to push it faster and faster. And the children on the roundabout would scream with delight as that roundabout went quicker and quicker. But then you'd either get thrown off the roundabout, in which case you wouldn't be screaming with delight, you'd be howling in pain as a child, or of course you wouldn't be able to jump on the roundabout. And this is the imagery that we like to use. The faster your vibration, the least amount of problems you will have, or the less problems you will have with any type of negative vibration. Because everything, of course, is vibration. So the higher you vibrate, things that are vibrating at a very low frequency are unable to connect to you, and they don't want to be around you because they can't maintain the level of vibration. In the same way that I come into Andrew's physical body in this trance channeling accessible method, effectively, his vibration has to rise and mine has to reduce significantly so we can harmonize the two vibrations, and I can then come in to the physical, because this thing vibrates at a very, very slow frequency, and obviously it's not maintained particularly well, as we know. But we won't go into the social choices that young Andrew makes. But effectively, there has to be a harmonizing vibration for me to be able to do this. And the same with entities. The faster you vibrate, the less problems you're likely to have with negative intrusion.
Is that difficult, Chen, for you to bring your vibration down to a certain level?
Yes, it's very difficult. If you remember, between us, we probably spent one whole year of your time, me trying to bring my vibration down to actually harmonize with his vibration that he was trying to rise. And if you remember, we had all of the fun of the vegetarian game.
Yes.
Where I wanted to see if Andrew was compliant and consciously wanting to do the work. So I said to him, if you eat meat, it keeps your vibration low, which it does to a certain degree. So it wasn't a complete untruth. But ultimately, I wanted to see if he would give up meat for a period of time, which I think was around 7 years or something like that. Yeah. So that I could see that he was actually consciously wanting to work with me. And in that same time, his vibration was rising and I was learning to bring mine down so that we could harmonize the two.
Yes.
And then, of course, I told him that he didn't really need to be vegetarian. It was just a test.
Yes.
Yes.
I remember that day.
He was very annoyed, if you remember.
Yes, he was. Yes, and actually, it has to be said, he doesn't eat an awful lot of meat anyway now. But there are moments when when he's pleased that he can. Well,
it's conscious choice, and all of you should be able to do everything that you want to do, really, because of course that's why you're in the physical, is that you can do things that may not be particularly good for you, but it's just consciously and intellectually knowing that they're not good for you and just doing them in small amounts.
Yes. Well, you've learnt to bring your vibration down quite quickly now, haven't you?
Yes,
you don't take very long.
My vibration is always aligned with him now, really.
Yes.
And his is higher, which is why he sweats. Or he'll say he sweats like a pig, I think.
Yes, he does say that.
Because he's very good at his choice of words.
Yes.
But of course the sweating is because the vibration of the physical is increased, and therefore there is more heat being generated by the body. And if heat's being generated, then of course you see that in terms of the sweat.
Outward expression on your body, yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Alyssa Marie Gibson. Hi, Chen. I have a two-part question. Now, that was very clever again, wasn't it? Yes. Can entities read, as in printing books and things on the internet? How do they gain knowledge? More specifically, gain knowledge of the person they're trying to attach to, like their beliefs and such, so they can trick them into thinking they're of the light when they most certainly are not. can they hear spoken words, or it's all telepathy, mind reading? Thank you so much.
So it's a very interesting question. One that was why I picked it, primarily because I thought this is quite interesting to talk about. So of course, entities can only read. You'd have to have a set of physical eyes and be in a physical body to be able to read what you write on paper, because of course reading is an optical thing that you do as a human being. So everything from a spiritual perspective, if you don't have a physical body, has to be vibration and has to be telepathy. So of course, when entities connect to someone, they're able to read their thoughts. They're basically able to go through your whole thought process and look at all of the things that happened in your life. And this, of course, is where traumas and things come up, because entities that are attached to you or discarnate spirits can see the things that have happened to you by effectively delving through your library in that way. And of course, if you're frightened of something, if you're frightened of spiders or something else, then entities and things around you know that you're frightened of spiders. So they can, of course, use these things against you. Basically, this is the general concept. So really, it's not to do with anything optical. It's to do with thoughts. But of course, as soon as you have a thought and you think, I have a spirit release therapy clearing tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., then if you have an attachment, the attachment clearly knows that's going to happen at 9 a.m. in the morning. And this is where sometimes they can be quite evasive to us, because they can detach, remove themselves from the client. We come along from a spiritual perspective and we look at the etheric field and we see that there are no attachments. And there's always things to remove. So we clear and remove the things that are negative and the negative vibrations. And if we do our job properly, and the etheric is completely sealed afterwards, which does require the client to obviously do some work too, of course. If that happens, then effectively that entity that was attached is not really able to attach again in the same way. They may be able to converse using telepathy with the person they were connected to, but they're not actually attached to them, so they can't steal their energy, they can't siphon that person's energy, they can't cause unexplainable pains and those sorts of things. But of course they can use telepathy to talk. So they can still put thoughts in your mind.
Yes. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much. Hope that makes sense to you, Alyssa. Your last question, Breen McCabe. Before incarnating, how did you and Andy decide who would be the spirit guide and who would be the human?
Yeah, so very funny question to finish the session, which is nice, because of course we do like to laugh every day, which is my saying. Everyone must laugh every day, and we have high vibration. So of course Andrew and myself energetically effectively are the same energy, if we look at it from a spiritual perspective. So effectively we have this core energy, which you would term as soul energy, and of course that can split into multiple parts and become different spiritual beings or different spiritual entities. So when we looked at this life that he's now living, and obviously we discussed which part of that soul energy was going to incarnate into the physical body, there were many conversations and disagreements generally around whose turn it was, because of course it becomes a turn. And as I say, lots of you are lucky to be here in a physical body. So on one hand, or one side of the equation, it's a huge benefit to be able to incarnate spiritually on planet Earth. But of course, spiritually, we know it's a terrible place to be. So from my perspective, obviously, as the energy Chen, which is part of the spiritual construct of the soul that obviously Andrew is contained within, we effectively drew lots as to whose choice it was against. And he lost. So he had to come back.
Had to come here,
and go through this spiritual and physical life. And of course, I had the upper hand, where I could stay energetically in spirit but be connected to him through most of his life. In fact, I wasn't really around for this early part of his life, so he was not allowed, it would say the wrong wording, but he chose to live the early part of his life not spiritually activated. And then, as you know, my dear, you were really the catalyst to this whole spiritual change that happened for him.
I remember the day.
For you. And I know that you both went through some quite traumatic times as part of that activation, but you're still here and you're still smiling and you do laugh every day. So from that perspective, it's been a successful setup and configuration, the two of you meeting each other again.
Thank you, Chen.
And this is why, of course, making it a little bit more confusing for some people, you and I are the same to a certain degree. Because again, from a soul family, we're coming from the same energy.
Yes.
So I know I've said to you before that
Yes.
we are obviously connected, and you look blankly at me.
Yes, it's hard to understand these things. I'm sure eventually, when we all go home, we'll know what you mean.
Yes, when you get back to my space,
we'll
the other
understand
side,
the explanation.
yes, and you'll look back at your life and think, well, that was wonderful. And then we'll say, who would like to go back again? And then we all take one step back.
Well, you said that it's a privilege to be here.
It's a
haven't
huge
you,
privilege
in this generational lifetime.
But it's not an easy choice to
No,
make,
it's not.
really. And that's, I know we laugh about it and it's quite funny, but a human life for most people is really full of trauma and negativity.
Yes.
And it's a struggle, a daily struggle. And we appreciate that from a spiritual perspective, that all of you wake up every day and you don't jump out of bed and throw your arms in the air and are jubilant about the day that's about to unfold. Most of you take a big sigh and a deep breath and wonder what's coming.
Yes.
And we do acknowledge that, of course.
Thank you, Chen. Yes, we appreciate it. Yes, thank you. Well, thank you very much. That brings us into your questions for this week, but I'm sure that everybody will enjoy listening to your answers. Everybody loves you, Chen.
Yes, and I love everyone too, of course, my dear.
I know.
So how many did we manage to squeeze in after the 5 in the end?
Well, it was
it 7?
6, 7, 8, I think.
Almost doubled.
Yes, well done.
Yes.
Very sneaky.
Very clever. Yes. Well, I will say thank you, my dear, for hosting. Thank you to Andrew for providing this amazing physical body that's well looked after. And I will say good day to all, and we will speak again next week.
Thank you for the privilege of sitting with you, Jen.